Okay, it's been some time since we last done some long form content, and in that time, we've done a variety of small independent films and a couple of fairly large productions. In that process, we've learnt what automated props or prop engineering needs more or less of on set. And I guess the thing we're seeing the most is that for independent films, the props are being hired as is, they're going out for a couple of days and they're coming back. And that means that the amount of control of the particular prop that's needed on set has gone up. So, in this period, what we've done is we've done work on what we think are the most generic pops. So, for example, right here, we've got this pulse thing going backwards and forwards. So, we've made that more generic so you can send more commands, more colors, more brightness to it. Gauges are really important because gauges narratively always show you the commodity that you're out of or the commodity that's driving the narrative. And in a kind of new thing, we've finally got round to producing some modules. This is not a prop as such. This is just to display some modules that are going to go into weapons. And we've got, if you like, a subsystem that looks after weapons so that you can tell which weapon has had the trigger pulled, when it's been released, whether it's jammed or whether it's overheated or whatever. We can talk about that. So first of all, I'd like to talk about the gauges and getting gauges to work as a group. So here, across this demo here, and these are the boards that I'm going to be taking out to some of the big prop makers and things like that. We've got a physical meter and we've got some digital electronic meters here, but they're all working on the same framework. So they're all receiving events that say this is what the meter should be doing. So to show you that, I'm going to hit it's off at the moment. I'm going to hit the power on event, which is not particularly exciting. What's happened is that this, I'll move this out of the way. You can see that the voltage has come on. We've switched on the system. Then we're going to go into a startup. So the currents come up, the powers come up, but nothing else has come up. And then we can do a run. And when we hit run, we see our physical meter go up, our digital meters go up, and our mythical turbo encabulator is delivering 22.4 gigawatts, which, as we know, is above the 21.1 needed for flux capacitors. Again, everything that you see here, every name that you see, every value that you see is controllable. So I can come in and I can, for example, reduce the amount of unobtainium coming out of A. I can take it higher. I can do whatever I want. And with B, what I'm going to do is creep it up higher and higher. So you can see that we've got a warning condition. So it's gone into, actually what it says on the screen there is peril, which a real meter wouldn't say peril, but that's just, if you like, a little bit of fun. And then when it goes over peril, it goes to destination F, which is our universal signal for things have gone particularly bad. Okay, let's just go back to run, so that will get back to a natural run condition. And let's talk about the kind of background animations that you might need. One of the ones we've got here is a kind of a load swing. So if I hit this load swing button, this is sending all the events out that is creating a load swing on the system. And you could imagine in the narrative world, this is pre-peril. So your cast are sitting around and they see and they react to these real meters and they say, hang on, what's going on here? Why is this load swinging about? Or we might have a cascade of peril where what we're going to see here is things are gradually going to increase and we're going to end towards, as we say, destination F, and the turbo encabulator saying too much and it's going to come round to things that are not particularly good, and then the whole thing's going to wreck itself, which is what that's doing. Right. From this point, that's meters. I'd like to talk about our kind of generic weapon system. Let's go with the generic weapon system, because that's different. So what we've done is we've imagined we can change this number, but we're using a matrix of 4x4. So you've got 16 weapons on set, and this here is its ID, if you like. The events that it responds to is weapon 1. You can see it's got a little bit in it, and if I send a reload command to it, hopefully you can see that going up. So that's loading it. In fact, it's actually got a loading system here, which, you know, as a prop, you could imagine loading your energy in here. Let's give it a little bit more reload. And the parameters of this thing are all set. So the idea is you can pull the trigger a little bit and it warms up, but nothing bad happens. But if you pull the trigger a lot, the temperature goes up and it overheats. In other words, what you've done is you've built into the prop the limitations of the narrative. So if our protagonist is trying to get rid of the enemy, they can get into a position where their weapon doesn't work and it's overheated. It's cooled down again now and it's going to work a little bit, and we can reload it. Now, the important thing about that is the events. So there is an event that happens when the trigger is pulled, an event that happens when the trigger's released, and there's an event that happens when the overheat happens. And that is per weapon. So if we have a collection of weapons on set and each one of them is having its trigger pulled and released, it means we've created edit decision lists which are indexed off the beginning of the take, and it means that in post-production you know exactly what the cast did with those weapons, and you know exactly when those weapons went into overheat. That means you can use a different sound for each weapon, and you can use a sound at the overheat, and it can happen exactly in time with the action, and there's no guesswork. At the end of the day, what you get on the EDL works, and even the weapons that are not in a particular shot will sound right. This one's quite amusing. We'll look at it later. I won't point it at the cameras because it has got a tiny little laser pointer. The laser pointer is very, very low. It's sub a tenth of a watt. But there we go. And then just to wrap up, we'll talk about generic pulses. This one is pulsing away in red. We could change that color to an orange. We could change it to a cyan, a purple, or white. And what you're seeing is that is changing very, very smoothly. So our whole transition between one thing and another is working really quite nicely these days. And we've been working on some ideas of one shot as well. So there's the one shot colors. And beyond that, unfortunately, I haven't got a bunch of them here. And the same is true for meters and weapons and pulses. We've introduced, and this is really quite new, the idea of groups. So all these pulses can be in a group. In fact, I have a very neat way of showing you groups, which I should have thought of. So if we just put this into some sort of run mode, yep, that's in some sort of run mode. We can send an event to all of these gauges to tell them to change their theme. So there we go. They've all changed to the inverse theme, and we can change them to the theme that matches the narrative. And we've got different themes that have got different kind of feels about them, or different contrast ratios and things like that. And that's all about working with your DP to make sure that the gauges are either sitting back in the narrative, supporting the narrative like something's going on, or they've come forward in the narrative to say to the cast, look here, you're heading towards destination F. Anyway, there is so much more that has happened with all these props, but I think that's a reasonable, quick roundup of what's happened.